1-2 to Mookie Wilson. Little roller up along first. Behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
Well, a 2-1 pitch. And a drive in the air to deep right field. That ball headed toward the wall. That ball is out of here! Out of here! A game-winning grand slam home run off the bat of Robin Ventura.
And it's hit deep to left center. Andrew Jones on the run. This one has a chance. Home run! Mike Piazza, and the Mets lead 3-2.
High fly ball to left. Back at the wall, and the captain's going deep 2-1.
Turner drives one to center, chasing Nimmo back to the warning track right at the fence. He made the catch! Oh, wow! The catch of the year from Brandon Nimmo! He took a home run away from Justin Turner! Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Episode 26. It is the Say Hello podcast. My name is Casey Lynn, and I'm joined by my co-host, former Major League pitcher and New York Met, Bill Pulsifer. We have Stephen White, our producer behind the glass, and this episode is brought to you by RootsDashRecordings.com. If you're watching here on YouTube, please like, share, subscribe. Just hit that button, subscribe. We have reached 300 subscribers. A big deal.
Right.
Very happy about that as we move towards, bigger goals. But, it's only been 25 episodes. So very happy with that. And without further ado, Bill, how are you?
I'm good. Tired of the winter. Tired of the cold, but I'm doing well.
I hear you. You know how I like to start sometimes with good numbers in Mets history. Not putting you on the spot, but you got one maybe in mind? One.
26?
Yeah.
Does anybody wear 26?
I'll give you
don't know.
All right.
I don't know.
My first favorite baseball player ever. This will give the listeners they'll know how old I am.
Bronya?
Boom. Yes.
I had to spark the memory just a little bit. Rico. Yeah, great guy. Great teammate. Great player. Underrated player.
Yeah.
Great teammate.
He wore 26 right around your time, 94 to 96.
That's why it came to me.
Yeah. He was my first favorite baseball player. I loved his game,
Silky smooth.
Yeah.
Silky smooth.
So we got Dave Kingman, 26 in Mets history, by the way, everyone. Dave Kingman, Terry Leach, Frank Viola in 1989.
Okay, sweet music.
Rico Bronya, 94 to 96, the time you were there, first time. And then El Duque wore it, actually, back in 06, 07. And then most recently, really of names, Kevin Plawecki, the backup catcher. And then Tim Locastro wore it last year, but didn't play much.
Right.
So, but Rico, So number 26 as we enter episode 26. And I think we're going to start off this episode with a big announcement. Maybe people do know, maybe they don't. But here we are. If you don't know, now you know. We have the polar bear. Pete Alonso will be our next guest on the Say Hello podcast. I'm so excited I couldn't even say podcast. That is big news, Bill. Obviously, fan favorite, walk year, 60 home 60 home runs away from tying Darryl Strawberry's record, I believe. Already. Yeah, it's insane. And Pete has agreed, and very excitedly, to come on our podcast. And we don't have a date set. And when we do, everybody will know it right away. We are as excited as everyone else. I put it out there on our social media platforms. We don't have that date locked in, but we will. It will be during spring training. And it shouldn't be more than a week, 2 or 3. Obviously spring training is only 5 more weeks. But what do you think? That's a big name, Bill.
Oh yeah, I mean it's obviously not just a big name in in Mets world or in Mets land, that's a big name in the world of baseball. And
Yeah.
great guy,
Yeah.
always has positive things to say. How cool is it for you on episode 26 where you go from Rico Brogna being your first favorite player to your now current favorite player and Pete Alonso. So how fitting that is. But that's a big time guest. Obviously, face of the franchise in a way. Obviously, people will say Lindor, but I say Pete.
Yeah.
Could argue Lindor, but I say Pete simply on Pete is a Met. Pete was a Met coming up, signed as a Met. He is
Homegrown.
a Met. And we are all obviously hoping for a successful season as well as a re-signing at some point in time of their franchise player.
And so he reported the camp a day before he was, officially needed to report for position players. He was the only player actually that had a press conference. Like at the podium with reporters and all that. No one else did. And he actually, this is why we all love Pete. Again, I know Pete personally now. I'm lucky enough, having Lucy, who Haley and Pete fostered, and now Lucy has a forever home with me.
I heard Pete's doing a pretty cool thing this year, actually, with home runs. And
go ahead, tell everybody if they don't know.
My wife actually told me about it. I guess for every home run, he's going to donate $1,000 to kill shelters around the country.
Yep.
And we said what a great thing it is, and obviously he's holding up his end of the bargain and some, and that's fantastic that he's doing that.
Yeah, and I saw all the comments, and there are Yankee fans, Braves fans, people that despise the Mets. That you can't hate on that. I mean,
there's no way.
He put it this way: he saved Lucy, and his wife Haley saved Lucy's life. Literally, kill shelter, all that. So yes, Bill's right. He announced it $1,000 for every home run, not counting the home run derby, obviously, if he's there. But let's hope that Pete hits 100.
Yeah,
100
nice.
grand.
100 grand for saving dogs. It's a beautiful thing.
So I'll say this: if Lucy will cooperate, I will have when Pete is on whatever episode it is. I will have Lucy on for a little bit.
That'd be cool.
To say hello to everybody. So that would be.
I'm sure Pete will appreciate that too.
Yes. So big news.
Big news, man. That's a big catch.
Yeah, sure. Bill, we're setting the bar high. Our first guest, Doc Gooden, getting his number retired, April 14th, and then Pete Alonso. I mean, that's pretty high bar to start off, but I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, and we're very lucky to be able to get those guys on. I'm obviously looking forward to. I've never spoke with Pete before, so I'm looking forward to getting to know him a little bit more on a personal basis, on a one-on-one or two-on-one, if you want to call it that. But big time, big names. Say Hello Podcast is doing some big things that maybe some people didn't kind of expect. So those are two huge names to pull out of the hat right away as guests.
Yeah, and there will be many more guests as well. We won't go into some names that we have, but we're excited for the future. So again, hit that subscribe button, like, share, follow, tell your friends and family. Pete Alonso's coming on the pod, and I'm eternally grateful for Pete doing this because Pete, I don't think has ever been on a podcast that I could recall. I've seen other players, Nimmo, McNeil, even David Stearns, talking about Pete Alonso on podcasts. But Pete is very kind enough to do this on his own time. So I'm very, very grateful for giving us that time. When it is, we will announce it. So
awesome.
Moving on. Pitchers and catchers as reported, as we talked about last episode, and now full squad is there as well. So we got the whole team, baby. Mets baseball is underway. I wanted to first talk about spring training as a fan and also get your take as a former player. So I did go to Clover Park last week as a fan, of course.
Thomas J. White Stadium.
I remember. I was there, as a fan. Tradition Field, it was called too.
Yep. I stick with, me.
I know.
You know how it goes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I get it.
Nostalgic.
It actually was Clover Park. I just read this, named the best minor league park by some big time publication.
Really?
It's a really nice.
Done tremendous renovations, and I had the opportunity last year in fantasy camp to go into the clubhouse. What a difference! What a difference it is from the just rows of blue lockers that it used to be back in the day. They
It's
did a
a
great job.
it's a state of the art clubhouse, and they're literally low A, or single A. So
Yep.
if you've never been to Clover Park, check it out. You got 5 weeks for Mets baseball, and then of course St. Lucie Mets play all summer long as well. So I went there last week as a fan, and I had a blast. It's changed, obviously from year to year. They always, tinker with things, and I went purposely not when the full squad was there, because after President's Day Monday, everybody who's a Met fan who can afford and has the luxury from New York gets on that plane when they're off from school and goes to the open workouts.
Yep.
And so I didn't want to deal with all the crowds, so I went before that.
Smart move.
Yeah. I had a blast. I've done it, 3 years in a row now. And back in the day, I did 5 years in a row when I was, a teenager. And they've upgraded, like you said, and obviously Port St. Lucie is upgraded.
Forget about it.
So I wanted to get your take. I know how it is as a fan interacting with players. I was talking with Jet Williams, the #1 prospect.
How's he looking?
You know who he reminds me of?
Who's that?
He's a small dude, but Jose Altuve.
Okay.
Pop, right-handed, small guy, 5'6", but I'm not comparing him to Altuve, a future Hall of Famer, but he reminds me. Plus, he's very young.
High energy guy too, right? High energy and aggressive, Good stuff.
And also Luis Acuna was at the hip, with Jet, who's the top prospect Mets got in the Scherzer trade.
Right.
So when I was there, not all the players were there, but a lot of them were signing, nice to the fans. As fans, you have to understand they're working. But always a good experience. If you've never gone for a workout, I recommend it at least once. So that brings me to you, Bill, as a former player, and you're in spring training, and you have all these fans who want your attention. You got to remember, it's exciting for the kids, of course, #1, and also just like you said, you're done with the cold. They're all getting out of the cold, the fans. They're all coming from New York usually, so their energy's perked up. So as a former player, do you recall, how did you go about interacting with fans back in the day?
Well, in my day, and I'm sure it's relatively the same now, is they have the 4 fields, and then they have the 10-pack, which is the mounds, and then the 4-pack, and then the small field. So you were crossing from field to field and all that, and would be interacting with the fans. Me personally, I always had that feeling that I understood that we don't have a game without the fans. And the fans, obviously, we play the game, we make the game, but the fans allow us to have that game. And without the fans, we don't have that game. So I always felt like if somebody wanted to come say hello to me or get a quick autograph, obviously within reason, and you're always going to have somebody that gets angry because if you sign 50, if you don't sign that 51, the 51st guy is going to be upset. And that's just part of it. But I always felt like I enjoyed it. Obviously, I was a little flashy, so I enjoyed the adulation a little bit. But, like I said, I always understood that without the fans, we don't have the game. It's not the same without the fans. So you want to give back as much as you possibly can and enjoy that they took their time during the day to come out and just to be with the players a little bit. So you do get a little bit closer interaction than you do a lot of other times because the guys are traveling from field to field. So I enjoyed it. I always tried to make the most of it. You put on a good face, even if you're having a bad day, because that's that one time that person might get the opportunity to meet you and you don't want to send them away with a negative vibe about you as a player.
Yeah, it's a very intimate setting for fans. You get very close to the players. You can get right up to the fence. And basically they're just doing, fundamentals, like you've mentioned, PFP, so ground balls just regularly at third base. I saw Beatty and Vientos. You get right up there, and you're right. People love their autographs, and if you don't get 51, that person doesn't like you, but you can't sign forever. I totally understand that. It's hard.
You got to give some time, but then hopefully the people understand too that you got to get on to the next thing because we are working. Like you said, you are working.
Yeah.
And as professional athletes, you have to have that kind of that light switch on and off between dealing with the fans in between, and then getting back on the field and say, okay, let's focus back in, because spring training, while it's tedious and it gets a little bit long because you get excited to start playing, it's very important to get yourself back into baseball playing shape and doing the fundamental things.
When you were playing and you were at Thomas J. White, as you recall it, I'm pretty sure it was. This answer is a yes. Did you have fans with photographs of you and that you signed?
Oh
With
yeah, cards, photographs,
all that.
Yep.
Fans come prepared, for their favorite
Absolutely.
players.
Yep. And look, us as players, we really enjoy that. We do. Where it gets a little bit is if when you see the same person and you know that person is a card hawk, and they come up with 15 or 20 different cards. I like to try to keep it. I'm going to sign 2 autographs for you, and then keep it moving on to the next people. The way that I've always thought of it is, if I was to bump into Robert De Niro on the street, and you know what, I want to go get Robert De Niro's autograph, I might run over there with a napkin and a pen or something and ask him to sign it. I'm not going to run over there with 20 different things for Bobby De Niro to sign. But you definitely should spend time with the fans and do the autographs and do the photos and say hello. And that's part of the game, man. That's part of being a Major League Baseball player.
And it's funny, you mentioned, 50 is a lot, and I know it's just an arbitrary number, but I'm going to have you guess, you probably know the answer. There's one player on this team right now who will literally sign for everybody until his hand is hurting. I mean, the nicest guy I've ever.
Well, my guess would be Nimmo or Lindor. Yeah, I would say Nimmo, obviously. And he gets it. He gets it.
I'll tell a story real quick. It's Nimmo, and it's everybody. The other fan bases, they get on Nimmo because they think he's fake. All the running too hard to first, and pointing up to the sky, and this guy is the friendliest, most down to earth. Like, that smile is real. And when I went on Friday, I didn't get a Nimmo autograph, but he was he took batting practice on the backfields. Then he was doing base running, just down to the first base line. And then he was a busy guy. Then he was all alone in left field, shagging flies, because he's, now the left field, they're not the center. Because when he was done, you had everybody going, Nimmo, Nimmo. And he said, I have one more thing to do, but I will come out and I will meet you at the gate in right field. And, well, idiot Casey knew he was, but it was taking a while, and I just, it gets hot and it's late, and he's working his ass off, probably, I'm going to guess, indoor batting cage. And I found out later on that day that he did come out and he signed for everybody. And people were showing me what they got, and I know this firsthand. Last year, he literally signed at that gate in right field in the backfields for everybody. I mean, he talking to the fans, taking selfies, signing whatever, striking up conversations, smile on his face the whole time. He gets it. Yep. And as fans, you really appreciate that. So, hats off to Nimmo. He's really just a great guy. And Met fans should really, not only is he a great guy, he's a great player. So, I just want to say, I'm grateful for having him on my favorite team. So I hope people recognize that.
I do.
Yeah.
I do for sure.
Yeah. So that talking about Nimmo moving to left field, what's it called? Mendoza. Carlos Mendoza. We're going to be talking a lot about him, the new manager of the Mets, bench coach the last 4 years of the Yankees under Aaron Boone. He's obviously there. He had a press conference as well. He doubled down, and it's happening. Your outfield to start with no injuries. Opening day will be Nimmo in left, Harrison Bader in center, Marte, who looks good, healthy, knock on wood, in right. So this brings me to our next topic. And this one, I like this topic. I complained, or, whatever, call me a pessimistic, what is going on in this offseason for the Mets type of fan, which is fair in my head,
I think in the majority of people's heads,
yeah,
a little different than the last few years.
Different, perfect, because nothing flashy like we're used to. Now that it's all set in stone and we see all the pieces have fallen in, this team, Bill, and I can't believe I'm saying this now, can compete. And I'll just read this off, and I want to get your thoughts. There is a classic baseball line that is true every year, and I'm sure you know it, and I'll read it to you. Quote, they will win 60, they will lose 60. What they do with the other 42 games will decide their season. So, if the Mets go 25-17, I'm making up numbers here, in the last 42, that's an 85 win team, which would put you right there in a playoff spot. So, they have, on paper, I think the talent, now that it's all said and done, to be right around there. That last 42 games, we don't know what will happen. It could swing horribly, it could go great. But I'm okay with 85 wins. You're right there, just like the Diamondbacks last year. Do you agree that with that classic line?
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously that's not cliche. That is the truth, and that's something that's been. I learned that early on in my base as a professional. That saying, and it's definitely it does bode true. I looked at it a little bit. That would be a 10 game swing, 10 win swing from last year.
Yeah.
That's a lot of games. It sounds great. It sounds easy. But 80, I looked, and the Diamondbacks won 84 games last year. So 85 games should put you right in the mix. Like we talked about last week, a lot of things have to go the right way, and guys have to play up to their potential, and that means everybody on the team. Obviously, very optimistic come spring training that things are going to go well, and you hope for the best. They're going to compete. They're not going to be the best team out there. Obviously the Braves and the Phillies and the Dodgers have a stronger roster on paper, but again, the games are not played on paper. The games are played on the field. And a lot of times what you find is teams kind of get going in a certain direction and they will play better than they are. And other times they'll get going in a certain direction and they'll play worse than they are. We'll use last year's team as an example where the team didn't play up to what their potential is. So you look into this year with some additions and some guys coming back like Diaz and that. You look for hopefully the trend hot and play above their quote unquote on paper potential, and they could be right in there in the mix.
Yeah. Two things that I got, you make all great points. Two things that I got out of what you just said. You hit the hammer on the nail. Braves, Phillies, and LA, I'm going to say they're in the playoffs.
They should be on paper.
Let's just, on paper right now. Anything could happen. Then you have, again, 6 teams in each league make the playoffs. So that's 6 teams in the NL. Let's just say that shoo-ins right now are the Braves, the Phillies. That would probably be a wild card for the Phillies if the Braves are going to win the East like they have the last forever. And then LA is obviously the favorite by far to win.
Chalk them in for 100 wins pretty much, right?
I think the over-under on the Dodgers, 105.5 win total.
Wow.
That's insane, but I get it. But to finish off the point, you have those 3. Then you have the winner of the NL Central, who could be the Cubs, the Cardinals,
the Brewers.
Right. So that's 4. So that leaves 2 wild card teams, 2 more spots. There you go. You have Mets maybe right in the mix. The Giants, I would say, would be right around there. The Cubs, if they don't win the division,
San Diego.
Yes. San Diego. They got Bob Melvin now as their new manager.
And I don't think the Diamondbacks got any worse, right? So they're still going to be a competitive team, and they're very young.
I think they definitely didn't get worse. If anything, better. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
So,
and they got a taste, so they're hungry now too.
Yeah. And the other thing that you mentioned is that the 10-game swing. I'll be positive for a second. They won 75 games last year, but they could have easily won more. They just decided to sell at the deadline. So, could they have won 84 games? Perhaps. We'll never know. So, moot point. But if everything, again, big ifs, goes according like you said, they could be right there for getting in. And the players understand that. I don't know if you've seen some interviews maybe on social media or SNY. They understand that, they're not favorites anymore like they were last year. So the expectations are lower, but they're all under the same umbrella with, we just got to get in the dance and anything can happen. And I've been saying that at every episode, I feel like. Just get in. Who cares? Yeah. So I right now, I actually feel good about the Mets' chances. Talk to me in 3 months.
It's spring training. Everybody feels a little bit good, right?
Of course. So that's a perfect segue. I know it's spring training, and I know it's early, just like you said. But hearing the interviews, being there, feeling the vibes, seeing how they speak, I just feel like the vibes are totally different from last year. With obviously on paper not as good, but paper doesn't matter. Go out and play, and I want your take on this. Because I don't know the answer, and no one does probably. Is it because they have less pressure, less expectations? Maybe Buck was a little too strict. Maybe they're just more loosey goosey because we don't have to win 100 games, or we're not the favorites. Blah blah blah. My point is, for me personally, feel a completely different, better vibe with the players. That's how I go about it. And you could disagree, not, but I don't know what it is. Could be all a combination.
Yeah, I think it's probably a multitude of things. I think obviously you take out some of the big personalities, in future Hall of Fame pitchers that can probably be domineering or dominating the clubhouse a little bit, and then you come off of the 101 win season the year before, where maybe you sat on your laurels a little bit. I don't know if that's the case or not, but it could be. Little less expectations, maybe the underdog thing a little bit gets you a little bit of excitement. Where we're going to try to prove people wrong, because people love to prove people wrong and show them I want to show you what we're made of. So I would say that it's probably a multitude of all those things. Buck being hard, I don't know if I saw Buck being hard much. I saw a lot of, I've had my complaints about the non-batting practice and all that, but maybe that's out of Buck's hands.
I'll tell you, when I say Buck, being strict, I know what you're talking about in terms of the no batting practice and all that. Buck, if you remember, wouldn't allow players to be themselves. Perfect example, Arizona, Francisco Alvarez, he went off. And if you remember, he did like a little dance around first base, turning around, but not showing up the Diamondbacks after like a big 3-run homer in the ninth inning down to the last strike. I
remember that game.
Yeah, he kind of spun around first, and didn't show up the Diamondbacks. After that, I'm sure Buck said something to him,
well,
because
it might
he
have had
stopped.
something to do with the team being 10 games under 500. Who knows really what it is? When it comes to letting people, I think the Buck Showalter from 1995 and the Buck Showalter from 2023 is a completely different person, because in 1995, well, let's not even say that. Let's say he was a Texan because he was a Yankee, so there wasn't going to be belts that are your country's flag, or belts that have nothing to do with. So he had to give some. This isn't the same Buck Showalter, and he had to be in the game, because that's just the way that the game is gone now. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it's a long ways from drill sergeant Buck Showalter, I would say. But
players like playing for him. He wasn't a drill sergeant. I'm not in the clubhouse, but I wouldn't go. I'm not going that far. I guess the other example, and there's not many, but for Pete, we were talking about Pull the Bear coming on our show, Pete Alonso. He brought back the LFGM right away. His first press conference that he used his entire career from his rookie year. And magically, when Buck came aboard, LFGM went away.
Yeah.
And now Buck is gone.
And it's back.
First press conference. You'll see it. He always ends his interviews with media, LFGM.
Right.
My point is, with the Alvarez celebration and the LFGM, is that letting these players be themselves is a good thing, in my opinion. If you're
it's a new day. It's a new day. That's for sure.
So I like it. I love the LFGM. It's Pete being Pete. Let these guys be who they are, if it's not hurting anybody.
Right.
So, speaking of hurting, Edwin Diaz, he's back, and he's not hurt. Don't worry, I'm not breaking news here.
Yeah,
he's healthy.
Everybody.
Right. No, he was hurt last year, as we all know, but Edwin Diaz is back, and he's healthy, and I'm sure you've seen it, and our listeners and everyone watching on Shay Hello Media on YouTube. He's faced now live batters for the first time since he got hurt. He looks good. I don't know if you've seen him, but man, the SNY or social media platforms, they go right in that cage with live BP right on the main field, and you're right in there, and you're like seeing that slider, and you're seeing that fastball, and you're like, how do you hit this? He's a needle mover. We talked about all the big ifs for the Mets to make the playoffs. we mentioned Diaz, but it's just inferred. Having him back, he looks healthy, and he says he is. He looks it. He arguably had the best reliever season ever in 2022. If he gives you close to that, he won't replicate it. The Mets are. That's a big, big, big piece back, and he looks good so far.
Yeah, obviously we've talked about it numerous times. He's a huge cog in this wheel here for the ball club. We talk about a 10-game difference. Last year, obviously the bullpen was one of the weaknesses of the team. So getting him in there and moving everybody up in the order obviously makes the game shorter. When you know that you got a lights out guy coming in the ninth inning. One thing I do like is he doesn't have the wear and tear over last year on his arm. His arm got to rest for the year, even though he didn't get to pitch. I know there'll be some people that say, well, he didn't pitch for a year. He's got to get his feet back underneath him again. This guy's been pitching his whole life, and the game didn't change in the 365 days that he missed. So I would expect a big season from Edwin. His stuff is some of the most electric stuff in the game. He's a big-time competitor. He's got to be a very uncomfortable at bat for right-handed hitters, too, because he'll whiz one up underneath your chin every once in a while at 99 miles an hour. So, very happy that he's healthy. I'm sure all Mets fans are, as well as the Mets organization, are happy to have him back, because I'm sure that he's probably a nice mouthpiece in the clubhouse as well too, for his positivity and his energy level and what he brings to the ball club.
Yeah, shorter. You mentioned how the game obviously gets shorter with a guy like Edwin Diaz, a lockdown closer. That, as you would know, helps everybody else out in the bullpen. That if they do their jobs and they just get it to that lockdown closer, unlike last year, chances are, we won't be breathing heavily like last year in the ninth. And Ottavino's back, Raley back. They didn't have Diaz. Now I feel like it just alleviates a little bit of pressure, and it means a lot. So, and Bill, I can't believe I'm saying this again. I think the Mets actually have a pretty good bullpen. Again, talk to me in 3 months.
Right.
But we were waiting for those final pieces, and we didn't get to talk about one player, Fujinami, that they signed.
Right.
Japanese, I believe, played with the A's last year, 7 ERA, horrible. But then he went to Baltimore, under 4 ERA, pitched well. Guy throws 103 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Now, that's great, but you got to locate, as you know. But he has the tools, and it's a good signing because he's got options. You can send him down if it doesn't work out. But again, upside, low risk, high reward. We didn't even get to talk about him. And then the other one, Jake Diekman. The Mets now have 2 lefty relievers. So him and Raley.
If that's a must, you got to have 2, at least 2.
Yeah.
And with Fujinami, I think it's great for him to be able to come to a club that has I know it's only his second year in the major leagues, but a veteran pitcher in Senga who's a nation man with him, the same nation, same country. Same countryman, that helps, for comfortability wise for him to have somebody that he can, if he wants to go and speak Japanese with his Japanese teammate, he can feel free to do it and be himself a little bit, So I think that will definitely be something that will help him. And Senga already being there for a year, knowing the culture of the organization and knowing the culture of the clubhouse can help endear him into his teammates and help him transition smoothly into being a part of the ball club.
Yeah. You're right. Senga, very good point. That it could only help.
Fuji. It can only help. It can only help.
Right.
For sure.
And I like to call him Mount Fuji. I don't know why.
That's good. I'm sure that's good. I would be willing to bet that will be his nickname.
Yeah. Could be already.
Probably.
And also, just because we never got a chance to talk about Jake Diekman, he started last year. He's older, 37, 38, lefty. He'll be behind Raley in the pecking order. But on the White Sox to start the year last year, walked too many guys, and he ended up going right away to the Rays. As we all know, the Rays are amazing with their pitchers, and they fixed them. And he had an amazing May to the end of the season with the Tampa Bay Rays. So they fixed the walks. He had a very good ERA as a second lefty reliever. Okay, I'm happy. Good veteran presence. He's been around.
Right.
ended on a good note last year. So I'm with Diaz, which started this convo off. I like the bullpen, and they're going to have to be on their game because we know the starting rotation is not going to give you
The length.
the length, the length, because they're just not built for that. So it's good. Obviously, bullpen is everything. So I'm above average bullpen. I'm not saying great, but above average.
Well, better. You feel better about it now than we did 2 months ago, let's say.
Yeah, and probably because of Diekman, Ottavino, and Fujinami. Those are three guys that they brought in a short amount of time, and Fujinami's not a veteran, but upside for him is insane.
I mean,
But
you dial in that 103 miles an hour,
right,
and you got something going. You got something going.
let's see that pitching lab they have now, and let's see Jeremy Hefner go to work with Fujinami.
Right on.
It's there. And plus, did we? I don't think we ever actually talked about Ottavino. We might have.
We
But
did. We did when he came back.
he's just another veteran presence, and he won't be relied upon to be a closer.
Yep.
So Diaz changes everything.
Yep. Ottavino slips back into the role that he's kind of always had over the last 5 years or so. You know, where he doesn't have to be that supreme pressure guy. He can be that transition guy to the supreme pressure guy, where he probably, and he might not admit it openly, but behind closed doors, he might say, you know what, I feel a little bit better in that situation, and I feel like I'm more successful in that role.
And he's happy too. Like, he's a New Yorker. He lives in New York. He's got kids here. He's older. He gets to stay here for at least one more year. So, I like it. We'll see what happens. Again, talk to us, and our tune might be a little different come May or June.
That's the way it rolls, right?
That's baseball for you. Let's talk quickly about two things before we get to the mailbag. Luke Voit, who had a stint with the Mets in AAA last year, just got signed to a minor league contract. Now, Luke Voit hit 14 home runs in 37 games last year. Ex-Yankee, Mendoza knows him well. Pop.
Yep.
I don't mind the move. I don't think it really. The only thing I could think of why they signed him, depth, because he could always go to AAA. I think he would have to agree for him. But they also signed Choi, G-Man Choi.
Did they? I missed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last year, Pirates and Padres, awful year. Awful. But lefty first baseman, good defender. And by the way, Luke Voit, first baseman. That is a split contract for Choi. So, with incentives. I like having depth. Obviously, this means nothing for Pete Alonso. He's going to play every day at first and get some days at DH for rest. But I think more. Let's see. I want to know your take on it. I know what your take is with Luke Voit in his hat and his sleeves, but and feel free to talk about it.
No.
All right. I like it more. It's not affecting Pete for the DH spot. I'm not saying they're not happy with Vientos. They've obviously given him the keys, but we've talked about it before. There's nothing wrong with competition. And if Vientos looks terrible in the spring, you can send him down. And if Voit looks good, there you go. You have Voit now. And things could, change over the year. But depth is a good thing. Choi, Voit, nothing to lose there.
Well, I think Voit is probably hungry. He didn't get much time in the big leagues last year, and as baseball players, you yearn for that big league time, and you want to be up there, especially as you get a little bit older, and you know that you're getting towards the end a little bit. So I would suspect that he's probably pretty hungry right now, wanting to prove that he's still a Major League Baseball player. Obviously, it gives depth. G-Man, when G-Man was playing in Toronto, in Tampa, he was tremendous, and he actually owns Garrett Cole. I don't know if you've ever seen the numbers on that, but he basically hits quite a few home runs off of Cole. So I think both of those guys would probably be an upgrade over Vogelbach from the last year and a half. So that's a positive. It makes you wonder a little bit about Vientos, what they feel about him. Maybe they feel that he needs a little bit of pressure to keep him motivated and keep him pushed. So I don't think that they're ground shaking moves. You're not going to get an all-star DH out of either one of those guys, but they do have experience. Obviously Voigt's got tremendous power. options are always good. Options are good. Only thing that I would worry about is as me as a young player that was seeing other guys be brought in and as just in cases or whatever. It makes you wonder about how Vientos is going to accept it or handle it. Knowing that, oh geez, here we go. Now we got some other guys. I thought I was going to get the opportunity, but hey, that's part of the gig. That's part of the job and that's part of the battle. It's whether you overcome it or whether you don't. So I think it's it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think we said it today, and we said it other episodes. A little friendly competition is good for everybody. So, and Vientos has handled everything well, so far. Said all the right things, and we'll see what happens. Spring training, that is one. Obviously, the DH. We'll see who rises to the occasion, if you will. They have now a lot of guys in the mix. They never signed. He's still out there. JD Martinez still available, but that actually perfect because you know who else is available. The last thing I wanted to talk to before we get to the mailbag, it's crazy, and they're all Boris clients, by the way. So we won't go there. We don't have time. But Jordan Montgomery available still. So is Blake Snell. They're all Boris clients. I don't know what is going on, but we are a month and it's 5 weeks. 5 weeks away from opening day. They're unsigned. Jordan Montgomery, if he's not going to get the deal that he thought he would at this point. I can't see it this late. They're not getting Snell. With Blake Snell, you have to give up a draft pick or two actually, and you
$1 million money, right?
$1 million, yeah, or
in international money, right?
Yeah. And teams are afraid. We talked last episode about the date.
What date was it?
I still don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Yeah, but Montgomery does not cost you any of that. He was traded from the Cardinals to the Rangers last year and won a ring. Pitched great with the Rangers in the postseason. Since he was traded, no qualifying offer, so you don't have to give up a draft pick, no international money, and it looks like maybe, I have no clue, but it's late. As Yogi Berra said, it's getting late early.
Yeah.
3 to 5 years, could you, if you're the Mets, he would fit into the plans of 24, 25, 26, 3 to 5 year deal, and right up the Mets alley, giving up nothing, just pay the man. I like it. I don't know if it will happen. It could be way off and not on the radar, but never say never, right?
Yeah, I think I like it too, and I think that he's kind of come into his own over the last couple of years after he got out away from the Bronx. The only thing that I think that might give the Mets pause or hesitation would be that he did go to two quote unquote smaller market teams, even though we know that St. Louis is a big time baseball town, but a much smaller market. They have the Dispatch that covers the team. It's not like they have the 8 beat writers and that. So maybe it gives them a little bit of pause, saying maybe this guy doesn't want to pitch in New York or is not a New York guy. But he's now obviously pitched at the biggest stage as well, pitching in the World Series. So that's even bigger stage than saying you're pitching in New York on a every 5 days. So I think he's obviously a quality pitcher. Came into his own over the last 2 years. I wouldn't be mad if he was wearing a Mets uniform and pitching every 5 days for the Mets. That's for sure.
Totally agree with you. It's crazy how he's still available. Crazy how the Ratings Cy Young Award winner available. Cody Bellinger still available.
Insane.
And then actually, talking about Cody Bellinger, former Met Dom Smith just signed a minor league contract with the Cubs. So that doesn't affect Cody Bellinger, who played on the Cubs last year, but they're filling up positions there if it doesn't work out. Because
those guys got to be going crazy on a daily basis, knowing right now that everybody's down at camp, and I still haven't got anything ironed out yet.
I know that. As we talked about in length about, if they have kids and family, where you're living, and also the money. And here we are. They got nothing as of right now. They will, but it's unheard of for all these guys to be still on the outside looking in at their quality.
Yeah. So. I think we talked about it briefly last week. I just would think that as the front offices too, and this comes from a guy that played for a long time, and I know a lot of people in front offices now didn't play at all. Like, you want to get that guy on the field ASAP as soon as possible. So I don't know how far these teams are off on their numbers with each other, but I would think that the front offices, and definitely the players, 100% the players, got to be feeling like, I got to get on the field, man. We're running out of time here to be ready, and I want to be ready. I don't want to be trying to get ready after the season's already started.
I know. It's a staring match. It's like who will blink
Who's going to
first.
blink? Yeah.
Right. And Soler up until last week was one of the free agents. He signed with the Giants. It was a staring contest between the Giants and Soler, and he got the 3 years. Giants caved, and here we are with the other players we just talked about. So yeah, you would think these teams would want, if they have interest, getting them in ASAP. And it's crazy to hear Boris, who has all these guys, including Pete Alonso and Juan Soto, who are free agents after the year. He has his own facility, I think, in Arizona that they could train.
Guys are working out,
right? Yeah. But
it's not the same.
No, I mean you could build a roster with all these guys, and they would beat most teams.
Good team, yeah.
Right. So we'll see what happens. I don't expect Jordan Montgomery to be a Met, but
I don't either. But
here we are. It's possible, but I don't see it happening. So good stuff there. And Dom Smith, happy for him. And also, I don't know if you saw real quick before we get to the mailbag, Daniel Vogelbach, you brought him up.
I did, yes.
Blue Jays.
Yep.
So good for him.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Yep. You root. Yeah. I root for everybody, man. Root
and
for them all.
One more, Eduardo Escobar, Blue Jays.
Okay, another solid player. I wouldn't mind having him back. He's a nice utility player. Great attitude.
Yeah.
Good positive dude, positive guy.
Fan favorite.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like him. Love the way he plays.
I wish them nothing but the best. Those guys, they were good guys.
Yep, absolutely.
Mailbag time. Here we go. If you're not familiar, we have the mailbag every Shay Hello podcast. We put it up usually around the weekend. It's from Shay_Hello on Twitter/X, where we ask you to throw your questions in for Bill and or me. It's usually for Bill, but follow us on Twitter or X, whatever you call it, and look out for that. It's called the mailbag. And you'll see it usually every weekend. We have some questions that we'll get to, and let's do it. Bill, you ready?
I am ready. Always
All
ready.
Right. You know who we're starting off with?
Yep.
Your boy, NYMGI. Bill, how often do you think Boris clients are in communication with him now? Are they cursing him out? I guess he meant their players. Yeah, their clients. He said that. So let me start over. Sorry, JK. That's his username. Bill, how often do you think Boris clients are in communication with him now? Are they cursing him out, trusting the process? What do you think it's like for these players now with camp underway? We just talked about this perfect time.
I mean, obviously, I would think that it's a daily basis thing right now because something has to give. I got to play somewhere. Even if are you talking to Japan? Are you talking, what are we doing here? Are they cussing him out? I'm sure probably at times underneath their breath off the phone, they might be saying, what in the is going on here? Trusting the process. Obviously, Boris has a long track record. So I think everybody's probably a little bit different. So you got to kind of trust the guy. But I think at some point in time, maybe teams are going to say, you know what, screw this guy, screw these guys. We're going to, we'll go on without them and they'll come running back to us because you're talking about owners of teams that are multi-$100 million, if not billionaires, relative to guys that are trying to make 10 million, 50 million, whatever it may be. Right. I know it sounds crazy, but chump change relative to the owners of these ball clubs. So I'm sure there's a lot of stress going on right now for those guys that haven't signed yet. Not that they're not going to be all right. They're going to be all right. But our livelihood and our life and our lifestyles, not lifestyles, who we are is ball player, and they want to go be ball players. So I'm sure there's a lot of tossing and turning at night, wanting to know what in the world's going on.
It has to be uncomfortable. I'll put it.
It can't be comfortable.
We're in the middle of February, late February.
Right.
Here, so I
want to be on the ball field with my teammates and getting ready to go.
Right. So good question. Perfect timing because we just talked about it. We'll go with, let's go with Jeff Hasley. His username is Jeff Hasley. And
new one.
Yeah. He goes, I'll keep things fairly straight with which utility player has the chance to make a big impact this season, which pitcher not in the expected rotation could make a jump as a routine starter as the season wears on.
Well, I'll start with the starting pitcher because we brought his name up numerous times, and that would be Lucchesi. Seeing what ends up happening with him, I like the way that he ended the season last year. He's proven that he's got some big balls, and he's not afraid to pitch, even with he's quote unquote understuffed. He doesn't have the
Yeah.
stuff that some of the high end guys have, but he's proven his
Churve.
mettle. Yeah, the churve, and I think he could be a guy that could end up cracking into the rotation at some point in time, and hopefully with health could be successful. Obviously, Wendell's he's taken over for the Guillorme role in the utility player. You'd like to see him. He's been a solid player. He's played on winning ball clubs. Hopefully, he can bring that winning mentality in as another competitive winning ball player. And then, obviously, we've said numerous times about DJ Stewart, but then obviously you have these two signings that kind of make him going to be sitting there wondering a little bit what's going on. Like, oh man, I thought I was at least in the mix for DH, if not, getting in the outfield a little bit more often. Now they've already announced that these are our 3 starting outfielders, and now I'm the 4th outfielder, and you just signed 2. But I would like to see him get an opportunity because obviously I love the left-handed bat, and I love the quote-unquote comeback story from a guy that was a highly touted, high draft pick and had to go through some struggles to get himself back to the big league level.
Yeah, DJ Stewart, I agree with in terms of position player. Like you said, first round draft pick, highly touted. He got a major league deal, but he does have an option left, so he's secure. But he could be back in the minors, which is a little uncomfortable. Like you said,
it's a shitty feeling, and I've been there, and it's a shitty feeling. And we've talked about this before. When you're going up there to the plate, or you're going out there to the mound, and you're feeling like, okay, it's make or break time. It's hard to play the game that way because the game is super duper hard to begin with. So I hope for nothing but the best for DJ Stewart, and I'm really rooting for him. And I think that he could be an integral cog in the wheel to helping the team be successful.
Yeah, and I agree with you with Lucchesi. The 5th spot is up in the air, in my opinion, with a lot of different names. But there's one guy that I'm going to answer this as well, just because I'm really in love with this guy. He's a prospect, and I see him up this year. And in my opinion, the number 1 pitching prospect in the Met system, Christian Scott. University of Florida, where Pete played, where Harrison Bader played. He's got the most electric stuff out of all those AA, AAA pitchers, and probably the closest with like Mike Vassell or Dom Hamill to make an impact on the team.
Ready. Yeah.
He's a reliever in college, so he's transitioned now to be a starter, and he only threw 87 total innings last year between single A and double A, but so they got to build them up a little bit. So it'll probably be as the season goes on. But his stuff, 97, incredible stuff. He's wowed the major league players in live BP already with his stuff.
Wow.
And his strikeout to walk ratio, unbelievable. He's a guy to really look out for. He has ace potential. So
Awesome.
not a lot of people talk about Christian Scott. So that I'll go with him.
Good name.
Let's move on to Jimmy Legs. Thanks for the question, Jeff, by the way. Jimmy Legs, Bill and Casey. Luke Voigt was just signed. Mendoza said in the DH mix. Is this legit in your opinion? He does have pop, or is it just to get more fire in Vientos? Well, we talked about this.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, if he comes out and Voigt knocks the shit out of the ball in spring training, great. If he comes in and he just applies the pressure on Vientos to make sure, because I've heard some things about Vientos, and maybe he is the guy that needs a little bit of a fire lit underneath his ass. So, I think
so be it. Yeah,
I think it's all of the above. I think yes, it is legit. As if Luke comes in and he smashes the ball all over the place, he is going to get the opportunity, and if he doesn't, okay, we move on. We obviously know we have Stewart. We brought in G-Man Choi as well, and we have the young prospect in Vientos. So I think that all of the above. I think all of the above.
Yeah. Great question, and we did talk about it. And yeah, I agree with everything we talked about and what you just said. And I'll put it this way: Luke Voigt did not come here without if you play well in spring training, you'll have every opportunity to make this team. Like he was told that, or he wouldn't be here. So let's roll with that. So thanks for the question, Jimmy. One more before we get to the quick pitches. Jake at Jake12889. Bill,
Yep.
it's for you. Bill, what do you like the most about Port St. Lucie? It sure has changed since the mid-90s up until now. Does anything stand out to you?
Well, obviously, it's come a long way from Port St. Lousy or Port St. Lonely. You know, and it was my home for a long time, and I still consider it a part-time home. And like I've said numerous times, I feel so lucky to be able to go down there every year. The thing that I noticed the most is the amount of food in the area, restaurants, fast food. It's just amazing that I think you could go probably a month or two just in the St. Lucie West area and never have to eat at the same place on a daily basis. I mean, obviously, it's way more than it used to be.
Yeah.
And they've got everything you need there when it comes to food wise. And the traffic, though, I don't know, because you can tell me, because I know the exit there off of 95, they've been working on it for the last 2 years, because the on and off ramp there, it would back up tremendously because the growth. I'm hoping they've got that on ramp, actually the off ramp to go into St. Lucie. If you're coming from the south to north, man, there would be back up for a mile to get on to St. Lucie Boulevard or St. Lucie West Boulevard. So what do I notice? Way more traffic and way more food, but it's still St. Lucie, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah. I was just there, and you were just there in January for fantasy camp. Commercialized to through the roof.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, they fixed that. There's no traffic now coming.
So that's all done now. It took them like 2 years. They've been working on that ramp for like 2 years to widen it, and it was.
You're good. You get. I forget the exit, but off of 95, you get
121.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And
I'll never forget 121. I mean, it's the 21 thing. So
21, your number, your favorite number. Yeah. So we're good there. Port St. Lousy. Oh boy.
Or Lonely.
Yeah, but
that's what it was called. Port St. Lousy or Port St. Lonely.
They've done a good job to build it up, like you said.
They really have. They really have. I love the place.
Yeah.
Thank you for back in a heartbeat.
Hey, you're still young, my friend.
Yep, I still got a chance.
Thank you for the question, Jake. That will wrap up the mailbag portion. And again, throw us a question for Bill or me. We'll put it out every weekend. Shay_hello on Twitter, and we'll do our best to answer all the questions. So thank you all for the questions in our episode 26 mailbag. And it is time to wrap things up, of course, with the last segment of Quick Pitches. Dun, dun, dun. We need we need theme music for Quick Pitches. I think that would be a really cool thing. Well, we'll work on that.
We'll have to work on that.
Yeah. If you're not familiar with Quick Pitches, real quick, Bill has 3 questions, maybe 4. If I don't like the answer to number 3, we've incorporated that as we've gone on, but we've done it every episode. He does not know what's coming, and it does not have to be baseball related. You ready, Bill?
I am ready.
Dun, dun, dun. First off, question 1. Do you have a boat?
I do not have a boat.
Perfect. If you had a boat, what would you name your boat?
So it has to be a female name, right? Isn't that how you name boats, females?
I've heard that, but I don't know if that's necessarily true. I'm not a boat guy. I've heard it.
How about this? It's a classic Forrest Gump line.
I love it.
I would just have on it, it would say, "That's my boat." Because when Lieutenant Dan comes to see Forrest and he shows up, Forrest jumps off of the boat to swim to shore to see Lieutenant Dan, and then you pan on by as his shrimp boat goes by and runs into the
crashes.
Crashes, and Forrest looks at Lieutenant Dan and says, "That's my boat." So I would just have "That's my boat." That would be the name.
All right. I like the name. I love your impersonation of Forrest Gump, because
not bad.
That wasn't bad at all.
One of my favorites. One of my favorites of all time.
Great movie. We've actually talked about Forrest Gump a couple times on the podcast. So I remember that scene perfectly. I like the name. So
one of my favorite parts of the movie. Of many favorite parts of that movie.
Yeah, the dude literally just jumps right off the boat. Crashes, and right in front of, like you said, Lieutenant Dan.
That's my boat.
I can't do the accent, so thank you for that. We'll move to question number 2. This is a weird one. I'm not going to lie. What's a body part you wouldn't mind losing if you had to choose?
You know, it's funny that you say that, because my youngest son, when he was a kid, would always used to say he wanted to cut off his pinkies. He didn't want to have his pinkies. So what body part would I want to lose if I think I can still manage without the pinkies.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, maybe an ear. Maybe you could take an ear like Van Gogh.
You could do that.
My ear.
One ear would still work, you know.
You could still hear even without the ear, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. So
what
let's
about
say pinky or an ear? That is a weird question. I don't want to lose any of them, but if I had to.
Right, yeah. Hey, I said it was a weird question.
Yeah,
so.
throw a pinky toe in there too, and that's a Seinfeld reference.
Yeah, it could be like a fashion statement if you had to do it. Again, if you had to.
If I had to. I would go pinky toe, pinky toe, ear in that order.
Okay. Yeah, toe, I could see, you know. Definitely, for sure.
Right.
Question 3, and this will decide if we go to a question 4. So I made question 3 on purpose before 4. So let's see what happens. Only Bill knows. What is the first thing you do after getting home from a long trip?
Take a shit.
Oh, God, that's awesome. It's a great answer. It's
the truth.
That's why the truth shall set you free, and it's the truth, and it's funny. I'm laughing, you know.
It's funny because it's true.
Wow.
And I'm not the only one. I might be one of the only ones that would actually come out and say it, but I'm being honest.
Yeah, you're not the only one for sure. Me too. You know, and I wanted to ask question number 4, but I'll save it for next week because that's a great answer.
That was
for
good
3.
enough.
Yeah,
all right, I nailed it.
Definitely, we got to end on that. That was perfect. I love it.
Good.
That's going to wrap up episode 26 on the Shea Low podcast. We had a lot to talk about. A lot has happened. Pete Alonso's coming on the show. We got spring trading underway. We got signings. We got Diaz. We got a lot of things going on. Any final thoughts, words, Mr. Pulsifer?
Oh, just thanks to the listeners. It's great that we've got to the 300 subscribers now. Awesome that we've got our highest watched show after having Doc on the previous week. I think that's outstanding. I think that I'd like to thank obviously everybody that sends into the mailbag, our usuals, and I'd like to thank the 2 new people that send in some questions. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I echo those sentiments, and I'm excited. Baseball's starting for real with games. Exhibition, but there's still games. So we're back, baby, and fun as always. Again, if you're watching on Shalo Media on YouTube, please hit like, share, and subscribe. You can find all podcasts on all podcast platforms: Apple, Spotify, Google, Chrome, Castbox, everywhere. We're on it. Shalo Podcast for audio. And thank you, Bill. Great answers for the quick pitches. And for Stephen White, our producer, Bill Pulsifer, my name is Casey Lynn, saying so long from episode 26 of the Shalo Podcast.